And I came here in 1986 to run it for myself, and I signed the papers, and I was owner of the Red Barn Incorporated. People come in here for the experience, more so than I think anything else. And they love the fact that somebody's actually taking the time to listen. Maybe you learn in proportion to how much you listen and care. If you can find that balance between doing what you love that isn't really work, that might pay the bills, and can resonate with people and actually to some extent help people. Without my customers, I would be doing what I don't love, guaranteed.
You all set, Dr. Megan? All right, let's go ahead. Call the meeting of the MSAD 49 Board of School Directors to order. Roll call, please.
Boyd.
Here.
Hamilton. Here. Ms. Chesley. Ms. Dumont.
Anyone to make it this evening?
Ms. Logero. Ms. Scott. Here. Ms. Kugelmeyer. Can't be. Mr. Liberty. Here. Mr. Martin. Here. Mr. Bishop. Here. Ms. Rebecca.
Here.
Ms. Thompson.
Here.
Ms. Total Lawrence.
Here. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the minutes. Will the MSAD 49 Board of School Directors vote to accept the minutes of the September 7, 2017 board meeting?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Tim, seconded by Ron. Any discussion? All those in favor? 6, 7. Opposed? Abstained? 2. 702. Citizens input. This is the time on the agenda that if there's anything anybody would like to speak on that's not an agenda item, they're welcome to do so at this time. Okay. This is also the time in the meeting that I announce different things that are going on within our schools. I would like to remind everybody that this is the time of year that the Hannaford Health Schools certificates are available with your grocery shopping. If you buy certain items, then you'll get certificates, and they can be either dropped in the boxes right at the store, or I'm sure the schools will collect them as well, and the PTOs usually collect them for their. So that's something that happens just this time of year in the fall. So if anybody has any of them, I'm sure the schools would appreciate that. Next up is old business. Do we have anything for old business? No? New business. Discussion on Saturday afternoon varsity football games. It was brought to my attention that we had a citizen that wanted to have it on the agenda to at least have a discussion. And I told him that we could, and I'm going to let him speak to it first, and then if anybody else would like to speak, then they'll be welcome to speak to that. So, Mr. Goldsmith, would you stand and address the board? Just let us know what you wanted to talk about.
When I first heard about the game being played on Friday night, back in the mid-1980s, I wondered why they were changing that to play on Friday nights. So when I first asked somebody about that, why the games were being on Friday night, I was told it was to accommodate the hunters. This resulted in the hunters getting see the game on Friday night and going to hunt too. So like getting their cake and eating too. So I became concerned about it. I've come across an article online dealing with high school football in the state of Montana. This article was dated 2014. Now, apparently out there back then, they played their games at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon. Now, it wasn't against the law at the time to play games on Saturday. This resulted in the parents having to take time off from work to see the kids play, and a big percentage of the student body had activities already at high school, sports, clubs, and whatnot. So to them, it didn't make any sense to have the games played at 4 o'clock because of that. It became an inconvenience. Another article, well, actually in the same article, deals with this, I don't know what they call classifications out there or what, but this involved the towns of Billings, Lowell, Stevensville, and Calestoga. Apparently they're in the same group of the team. One parent from Stevensville wrote in saying that her son's next game was going to be on a Friday in Stevensville. This game was scheduled to be at 7 p.m. and the players would not be staying there overnight. Their bus apparently was going to be leaving right after the game to get back to Lowell. Now, if you got a map in front of you, you can see the difference between Stevensville and Lowell, which is a good number of miles. What was that day like for those players on Saturday? They wake up and go to class, get on a bus and ride for 6 hours, then they play for 10 hours, up till 10 p.m., go back on the bus for another 6-hour trip. That's not fair for the players and the students and the parents to force them to do that. The thing that about this article that impresses me is that the people in that district, by this article, showed concern for their students, their players, and their parents. Since our district went to play games on Friday night, even though I've mentioned it to some of you at times, I have not heard one single word from any of you. Not one single word showing concern for the players, the other students at the school, and their parents. My concern is that for the parents on Friday night, the altitude in the cold, the dark, sitting on those wooden benches, or some people like to stand on the sidelines in the cold and not being able to see way down at the other end of the field. To have these parents come to these games, grandparents maybe, come and sit there for the total length of the game, not being able to see the far end, being cold, sitting on these wooden benches. Now, to me, we are social concern for these senior citizens. High school football was supposed to be designed to play on a Saturday afternoon. Now, while it's not against the law in Montana, it shouldn't be against any law here in Maine to play games on Saturday afternoon. On Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock, nice soft breeze out, you can see the far end of the field. You can even enjoy the game. I recently went to a game over here in Winslow on a Saturday afternoon. It was about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, when they played Mount Desert Island. That was a Sunday afternoon, a sunny afternoon. Halfway through the game, it did rain, but everybody had a good time. You see players, enjoy, hear the band, and just feel the sun and the breeze. So I think that there's no reason why we can't have the games on Saturday afternoon. I've been told also that the Booster Club, the money they get from the sales of the snack bar, that's the money used for pay for the lights. And the gate receipts is just to share between the two teams playing. Instead of putting that money toward the lights, take that booster money and put it toward buying more products for the convenience, for the snack bar, or for the maintenance of the shed or whatever. We don't need to lose the lights. Don't really need it. You take that money and use it for something else. That way, by playing on Saturday afternoon, you'd be more concerned about the health of the players, other students who can be more apt to be there on a Saturday afternoon, and for the parents. On Saturday afternoon, the parents wouldn't necessarily have to worry about getting out of work early. They could be at the game, grandparents, they'd have a better time there, I think.
Thank you very much for coming forward with this, Mr. Goldsmith.
One thing,
Yep.
since they started playing those games on a Friday night, I've only been to one of those games on a Friday night. But you folks are doing that. I'm not enjoying the spirit of Saturday afternoon because I'm not there. Saturday afternoon was the day designed for high school football, and that's where it should be played.
Thank you very much. Would anybody like to speak to it? Yes, go ahead.
Gary, I'd like to address every single one of your concerns. High school football has been played on Friday night for centuries. At Lawrence High School back in the 70s, I was only born in 71, but I know I got an uncle that graduated in 73, and I was carted to all those games on Friday nights by my mother. So it's been in Lawrence High School at least until the 70s. Now, high school football is played on Friday nights because college football is played on Saturdays and professional football is played on Sunday.
Right.
Now, I don't know if you played high school football
I
on
did.
Friday nights. I have.
Maybe
Enough
one
of that.
reason you went to
Hold on, Mr. Goldsmith.
I want to
Let him-
answer all
let
of
him-
your,
let him
all of your
answer.
questions, okay? I've also been a parent, a booster, and a worker in the community. We have many workers and parents that are shift workers in the mills. And those mills work 6 to 6 shifts. So it accommodates those parents so they don't have to get out of work or try to swap a shift or miss a day to call in to make their child's games. Because they get out at 6, they can make a 7 o'clock game. You talked about the transportation in Montana. I don't really care what they do in Montana personally.
Well, that's the way
But
I
you know
feel.
what? I've had kids that played hockey and had to go four and a half hour rides to Presque Isle. Where we leave at 6 in the morning, we arrive there around noontime, play a game, have something to eat, come back, and it's 7, 8 o'clock at night. Regardless of whether you play on Friday night or Saturday afternoon, that transportation ride is going to be exactly the same. So the welfare of the child or the student is absolutely no different. It's not on a school night. Now, I also want to address our soccer plays night games during the week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, boys and girls. And they play a lot more games. They got a 16 or an 18 game schedule, so they have 8 or 9 home games per sport. JVs also do the same thing. Basketball plays freshman, JV, and varsity back to back to back. They start at 5 o'clock. I'm not complaining about basketball. We're not complaining about soccer. Field hockey, I got a daughter at a field hockey game right now. I'm here choosing to be at the school board meeting so I can address your questions for football. Why are we complaining about every other sport? Why is it football? So that's going to be my question to you. But to answer the rest of your question, as a football player on a Friday night, there is nothing like it.
Nothing.
You have bigger crowds. Football is a game played in the elements. You play on Friday night, if it's pouring, you've got a thunderstorm, you can make the game up on Saturday. You get a Saturday afternoon game, you're pretty much stuck with it. The ADs, David does an excellent job of trying to maintain his field. They're not going to play when it's snowing or raining on a Friday night if both schools mutually consent to move the game. Playoff games are different. The NPA controls that, they get the gates. We move them because it's colder, it's in November. They're played on Saturday afternoons, unless both schools agree to play on a Friday night. So maybe once in a while an Eastern Maine game will be played on a Friday night, but most of the time, in the days that I got to play back in the 80s, they were all played after November 1st on Saturday afternoon. We played Winslow for many, couple decades at least, a major tradition. All of our home games for Winslow were scheduled on the first day of hunting season on Saturday afternoon because Winslow refused to play us on a Friday night because those crowds drew in 5, 6, 7, 10,000 people on any given night, and the police couldn't maintain them at night. So they refused to play us. Nobody else did. It was just Winslow refused to play us on Friday night. And this past Friday, not this one, but 2 weeks ago, they renewed that tradition. They played it on a Friday night. Probably one of the biggest crowds we've had in the last 3 years.
Yep.
In Class A, most schools have lights. There's some private schools, Cheverus down south that does it. Coney High School never used to, they do now. Waterville High School never used to, they're putting in for lights. Nokomis High School didn't have lights, they're putting in for lights. They're also going to AstroTurf. So most Friday night games, not just in our state, but every state, there's a huge series, Friday Night Lights. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a huge series, gone on for a long time. Big football is Texas and Florida. And the reason why colleges played on Saturday and pros on Sunday, that's why these stadiums in other states, because they draw in masses of money, high school football is played on Friday night. Now, as to accommodate the senior citizens in the cold, whether it's 20 degrees on a Saturday afternoon and it's sunny out, or it's 70 degrees on a Friday night and it's raining, that's football. That is part of the game. It's a sheer element of the game, and we shouldn't try to take away the integrity and change that part of the game. If I'm a senior citizen and I want to go to a soccer game, I have to park my car in the parking lot and walk to the field. We seem to allow cars to drive right up to the goalpost. They get cold, they turn their cars on and the lights come on. I'm dead set against having cars on Kai's Field. The only other field I know that does it is Scout Egan. To me, it's a liability for the players. They could run into a car. It changes the game if they do decide to turn their lights on. And many of those seniors drive in and put their butts in the stands. The boosters make more money on Friday nights, and we accommodate the seniors, the band boosters, and the football boosters. We're one of the few schools where we have that many people. Cross country will be there selling things. Mark can attest to it. A lot of his clubs are going to be there on Friday night because that's when most of the community is going to come out. Our homecoming game, played on a Friday night, followed by a parade. The entire community comes up, Albion, Benton, Clinton, they line the streets. They're there at 4 o'clock, it's a big deal. We have PAL night on one of our nights. We only have 4 home games every year. So you're talking about 4 Friday nights that you're gonna be at home, guaranteed to be at home. So to move it to a Saturday, break tradition, it would cause a lot of havoc for people that do have to work till 6 o'clock. And for parents like our coach, John Harrison, he had sons that played at Hudson, played on Friday nights, gave him the ability to pursue all 3 of his sons' career. You have to go watch those games. Sometimes you get to scout, they have prep time, they need to put in that time. So Saturday is just not feasible for high school football, unless you don't have lights. And we do, and always have, as far as I know.
And I don't think it's even desirable. Whether or not it's feasible, I don't think it's desirable. I don't think anybody that I know of would want to trade Friday nights for Saturdays. Except you. This is the 4th or 5th time I've heard you talk about it.
In this district, we never had a Friday night football game until the mid-80s.
That's wrong. That's absolutely
I
wrong.
spent 4 years at high school.
Okay,
Not one game was on a Friday night, and I've got the clippings to prove it.
okay,
When did you graduate from high
I
school?
don't care what they do in court.
Okay.
My mentioning
Okay.
of Montana was just to show you.
okay, all
We're not in
right,
Montana.
hold on.
What could be done.
Hold on. Thank you, Gary. Did you want to speak?
Please.
Okay.
My name is Eric Lunch. I just came from a great football game, freshman football game where we beat Mount Blue, and it was an exciting game. Have you heard anything about that young gentleman? Yeah, there was a young gentleman on the other team that got injured and had to be taken off by ambulance, and so we want to keep him in our thoughts and prayers, folks. You mentioned lights, Mr. Goldsmith, right?
Right.
How much?
We never had lights until the mid-80s.
Right, let me ask you a question.
Because I never saw them.
You're wrong. That's
Hold
wrong.
on.
That is wrong. Wrong. I was
Guys.
4 years at high school, we didn't have lights then.
Okay,
Well, hold on.
okay, excuse me.
Because you keep
let's-
saying it doesn't make it right. You are absolutely
Just
wrong.
told you hit the right either.
Guys, one person at a time, please. We're just talking about the issue. We don't need to get out of control, so go ahead, please.
Can you answer for me how much it costs to run those lights on a Friday
I
night?
did.
What?
I have no idea.
So you didn't do your homework, right? Brought up the point, but you didn't do your homework.
I just figured we don't really need
Okay,
those lights.
I do know how much it
Put the
costs.
lights into something else.
I do know how much it costs because I asked the question.
Good.
It costs $80 to turn those lights on, all right? $80. If we're that strapped for money, in SAD 49,
We're not.
and the football program, I'm sure that there's other things that we can do to be able to have that $80 to be able to put on the line. So that issue can go right off the table, right? Because we know how we're gonna pay for it.
I'll make a commitment right now, I would pay for that.
You know, and I know you would. You know, there's a bunch of different ways that you can make up that money, besides uprooting a whole family's life schedule. And that's what I want to talk to you about, Mr. Goldsmith and everybody else. I have 2 sons that play sports. I'll be honest with you. I went 4 years to Lawrence High School, graduated in class of '93, never once went to a football game. You know why? I was at home playing guitar.
Yeah.
Not that I had any knock against any football player. I found out what happened the next day from my friends. It wasn't a big deal. I didn't go to a football game.
But
I
you
didn't.
lived in a mansion in Clinton, so.
So I'm speaking strictly as a father of 2 athletes. I love those kids more than anything else. That's why I go and sit in those football games. Because believe me, I'd rather be doing something else. Because I watch football, and to me, it looks like 2 meatheads running into each other as hard as they can. But that's me. And I have a son that's on that freshman football team who's going to be turning 15 years old. And I just love seeing him and his friends out there together. And I was just remarking about how the crowds get bigger as they get older. And I'm looking forward to Friday night when they play with all of his friends. You know why? Because this school gets my kids, for 5 days out of the week. All right? Am I wrong? I'm lying, I'm dying. 5 days out of the week, the teachers and the faculty, who I think do a wonderful job, everything is running very smooth for both of my kids. One goes here in Benton and one's at the high school. My wife and I are very happy with both. But they get it for 5 days, right? I want Saturday and Sunday. I deserve to have Saturday and Sunday, Mr. Goldsmith, and I would never allow you to take that away from me. I would fight you until the end for you to take that away from me. I work 6 days a week, Mr. Goldsmith. I work 2 jobs so I can put food on the table for my kids. And I'm going to say it because the camera's on. Dan, I would never do that to you. You know what I mean, brother, right?
So what are you afraid of?
What am I afraid of?
I'm saying what you're thinking.
I don't want to curse on front of the camera, sir. But I will not allow anybody to take my kids from me on Saturday and Sunday, because that's my time. That's my time to have with my kids. It's a family time. We always talk about tradition, right? Football's tradition, and tradition play on Friday. We've been hearing that for years, right? That's what the big thing is. I don't care about tradition, because traditions die just like people die. But one tradition that is dying, and I do not want to die, is the family unit. With kids going here and going there and being programmed to play this and that sport. I want my time with my kids. And I will not allow anybody to take that from me. So they can drive to Montana, they can drive to Timbuktu and back in their bus for 6 hours. I don't think that we have a game anywhere where we drive for 6 hours. Last time, New Bangor wasn't 6 hours. Augusta's not 6 hours. Or as we say around here, Augusta.
No 6 hours.
Wait.
Not still being a state.
No, I know.
Yeah, that's right.
I've been to Prescott.
I mean, Presque Isle, I know, I was born up there. That's God's country. I know, I was born up there. So,
Going from Berwick to Prescott.
yeah.
All right.
So money's not an issue. What's an issue is taking kids away from me on the weekend. I already got one kid playing PAL that I have to go and watch his games on the weekend. You're gonna split up my wife and I to go watch 2 games? Senior citizens, they're out there because they want to be out there. No one's holding a gun to their head saying, you got to sit in the cold to watch this game. Nobody is. They're out there because they want them, because they love their grandchildren. The parents are out there because they love their kids. The fans are out there because they love the Lawrence Bulldogs. So it's not a money issue. What else did you say here? Concern for the players. I think
You
that
actually took notes.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm impressed.
Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I?
Good to hear.
If what you said was important, and I wanted to address it. You had a good time in Winslow, that's great. You know, a couple of Friday nights at Ford, and I had a good time in Winslow. I was wet, my kid was wet. I was there to really root for one kid, the freshman kicker, because he's my son's best friend, and the kid is like a son to me, comes over and eats my food. That's why I was there. And it poured and rained on me, but I still stayed there because of that kid. I don't care about adults. I'll be honest with you, I don't really care about senior citizens. I'm gonna be honest. I don't care about adults. I care about kids. And I care about families. And number one, if you have my kid go and play a game on a Saturday, that's time you're taking away from me. And I don't want to give up that time. Do you have kids?
No, I don't.
You don't have kids?
No.
You don't have kids that play football?
Ken, you don't get kids just by thinking you want kids.
No.
There's a process to go through to have kids.
Well, no, I know. I had two of them. I worked hard for it. It was, you know.
Yes, you did.
We did it. So, you don't have kids.
No.
You don't have kids playing football. You don't have kids in the district. Why the heck are you here?
Because I was offered to you.
I think it's a mute issue, folks.
I was so to speak to you.
I really think.
Thank you, sir.
I really think it's a mute issue.
All right,
But thank you so much for giving me the time to
That's
speak.
all
I
right,
appreciate
Gary,
it.
we're good.
One thing. I care about tradition.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
what I care about. That's what I grew up on, was tradition.
All right, thank you.
When you take tradition away, you
Thank
have
you,
nothing.
thank you for your input, Gary, and that's the one thing I will tell anyone is that he asked to speak and I have allowed him to express his concern. Moving on, are we ready to move on to the next item on the agenda? This is, we're gonna be doing the report on the 2016-17 Instructional Improvement Plan results with the principal. This is, we still got other things.
Can we do all the other stuff first?
You wanna do everything?
I just said the same thing.
You
We did?
Would you like to move and do this step first and
I
then?
so move.
Okay. So- We're gonna take things out of order then, out of the order of the agenda. I'm not gonna vote on it because it's my prerogative if I want to, so.
That's Bobby Brown's son, right?
So anyway, unless you want me to address your motion, will you withdraw your motion?
I withdraw, whatever you
Okay,
want,
so we're gonna take things out of order, and we're gonna come back to that. I know our principals are here, but let's move on the rest of the things, then we'll do the principal thing, that way when we're done, we're all done. Okay, let's move on. Resignations, Dr. Baker, do we have any resignations? Okay, appointments. Will the MSAD 49 Board of School Directors vote to approve the superintendent offering 2017-2018 co-curricular positions as listed below? Sarah Hebert, National Honor Society, 1560. Heather Fuller, Lawrence Junior High School Robotics, 1100. Mark Mayhew, Lawrence Junior High Robotics, 1100.
Do you have an addendum as well?
Yes, you will take that as a,
Or you just put them all together?
okay, and we'll add to that on the addendum, we have, Mason Peterson for the, position of Lawrence Junior High School Drama Coach for a stipend of $2,080. Did you move, moved by Sherry,
Second.
seconded by Tim, now, who's Mason Peterson?
Yeah.
That's the question. Dr. Baker? Yes, moved by Sherry, seconded by Tim.
Mr. Peterson comes by way of North Carolina, where he graduated from Mountain Heritage High School in Burnsville. He attended Berea College in Berea, Kentucky, where he majored in theater and English. While in college, he was involved in several productions like Galileo. He has on-set film experience as the lead actor in a short film, Meet Again. And I think Mr. Whitman, he was the only candidate
He was,
to sell a lot.
Does he work at the junior high or?
he was not, no.
Oh.
Did he read, who used to do that position?
Last year we had a,
It was open last.
Yeah, it was open.
It was open?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Noes? And abstains. 11-0-0. Committee reports. Let's go with policy committee, and we have.
New chair.
Oh yes, we have a new chair for a policy committee.
Gee, thanks.
Terry.
Policy committee met on, this week, and several issues were brought up, specifically working on developing rules for the new Chromebook, distribution of Chromebook to students, the rules that will apply therein. We also continue to, and I hope for the last time, tweak the athletic code. I'm pretty certain now that after meeting with Mr. Campbell and Dr. Baker, we got that pretty well squared away, I believe. We worked on policy IGDK. Will have to be deleted at some point.
Will be on the next
Yeah, on the
agenda.
next agenda. There's also, and I think most everybody received the handout from Dr. Baker on the new required child abuse and neglect reporting regulations and stipulations, procedures. And there's an explanation for that here. But that we're having to come up with some tweaking of our policy to comply with the new state mandate. And that's where we are.
Negotiations, we have not met. Vocational.
Yep, we had a meeting, a first governance board meeting for the Midway Technical Center, and there's a lot of routine business, but everything appears to be going well, and with huge issues other than some state regulatory stuff that might be in the wings, but we can never tell that until it happens.
I had asked Dr. Baker to get one of our meetings to be at the vocational center, so that we can, anybody that wants to tour that has not or wants to tour again, can do that. So we're going to be looking into doing that in the next month or so. Facility. Yes.
Last year, when we were going to do that, if memory serves, we opted to go to the open house skills demonstration.
Yeah.
Because members said they'd rather watch students doing that. You know when that's going to be?
Skills competition generally in the spring, January.
Not the competition, this was just, this was like open house,
Okay.
everybody.
I'm not sure when should be right around the end of October.
If memory serves, it's about.
Okay, we'll see what.
But this time we really try.
I'd like to, if we can schedule one of our meetings to be there like we did once before, and be able to walk around the vocational center at that time.
I
That would
think
be
that'd
good.
be good to have culinary for her.
Yeah, why don't you see if they want, if culinary arts would like to at least prepare cookies for us, how's that? I know, he'd rather have the meal.
That's right.
Okay, has drop-off met?
Nope.
No,
Coming
okay.
up.
And,
You said no to
finance.
The finance committee met tonight. We met with our new business manager for the district, Tara Thompson. So that was very nice that we got to meet her. We also reviewed the revenue and expenses on a year-to-date basis. At this point, it's obviously very early in the year to look for any trends, but we are monitoring that on an ongoing basis. We also checked in on the audit, the end-of-year audit for June 30th, and things are on track. The auditors were on site last week and expect to be back on site at the beginning of October. All of that is going well. And we also touched a little bit on something that Dr. Baker will bring up in his superintendent's report, which is potential changes from the state as far as Child Development Services.
And facilities.
So, meeting before the next board meeting.
Okay. Anybody have anything else right off the top of their head, something not discussed? Okay, so let's move into the superintendent's report.
Well, this morning was eventful at the Lawrence Complex. The sewage pipes broke, and we had some backup and a little bit of effluent spill, which was disinfected. And it turned out there were 2 breaks in the pipes. They apparently were original to the building, and just time has degraded them. One had a tree trunk that had grown virtually through the entire pipe, and the other was a break at the sections that was out closer to the road. The process worked during the day. We brought getting the things repaired, we blocked the street, and I commend the way the high school handled it. I think it was minimal disruption as a result, and I'm told it will be fixed by morning, so we'll all hold that. We also just did a walking evacuation drill for grades 7 through 12, and due to circumstances beyond our control, we did not go to KVCC where it had originally been planned. We went to the park in Fairfield Village in front of the old Lawrence High School. That all, I thought, went very well. Students were very responsible, very serious, followed directions. We did have one unfortunate event with some citizens that were yelling at the students, but our students demonstrated very good behavior in the face of that. And the elementary schools will be upcoming in their respective drills. And each year, as you know, we just try to keep current on different ways to deal with expected, knowing that in a real emergency, exactly where or exactly how will depend on what's happening at the time. The MSMA conference is coming up at the end of October, the 26th and 7th. Several members have attended in the past. I think it's a great chance to just get out and see what some of the rest of the state is doing. You find that some have good ideas and others will make you come home and go, we already do that, we're better than that. But it's a chance to have a chance to speak to people from other districts and see how they're handling some of the same issues we do here. You all did receive a handout. It's entitled Proposal for a New Model for Child Development Services, which just came out from the department this week. Basically, in today's newspaper had an article dealing with the topic in the Morning Sentinel. Basically, there's a proposal to shift responsibilities from child development services through the Department of Education to local school districts for responsibility for children with disabilities ages 3 through 5. Although every school district, I'm sure, is eager to have students receive those services, the issue is capacity and financing. And I think it's a lot more complicated than just saying, well, that should be tied in with how special education operates in a school district. And I recall how other previous state responsibilities that have changed into local responsibilities in the last few years, notably the teacher retirement system, which was totally a state responsibility and was shifted over, and incrementally the state has been reducing its support, and therefore incrementally it's becoming a taxpayer, a local property taxpayer responsibility. And I would applaud the attempt to make sure we have coordinated service, but I'm very concerned that in the process of trying to get the state to 55% funding for education by running more expenses through local budgets, the money necessary to make those programs happen is far from certain. I would be very cautious and would urge the board to speak with your legislators, since this is a proposal that will be going to the legislature, And if our own representatives understand that this shift will be the potential for, and I think the likelihood for, a shift to property tax reliance, and I think we're already asking a lot of taxpayers, and it's unfortunate in its effect on the schools. I don't know if there are any other questions on that or not. Locally, students have been doing the common district writing prompts, which you know we do each fall, and on October 5th is a day when all the faculty in the district grade the responses, and that's an attempt to help our faculty all get on the same page, no pun intended, with what we're doing when we score and assess writing. And I think that's a valuable time. It's helped our language arts curriculum and literacy in all areas. And if we have a moment, now for policy committee, we should go over report cards now quickly. If you want to, with that, let me just distribute these. Policy committee members already have these.
Oh, junior, because 8th grade is in the,
So some of it.
This is the other thing policy committee will want. Got that covered now.
Well, as you all know, the state has mandated that all districts prepare a system for certifying proficiency on learning standards in the state. And part of that will be how do we report that progress and what is the process of defining and then certifying that. So you have the samples of grades 2, 6, and 8 here. Just in the interest of saving paper, since there's redundancy from grade to grade. If you want to see all of them, you're very welcome to. And on the back, you'll see another section that will be attached to the front sheet, which shows the course descriptions. Part of what our faculty have been working very hard on, and administrators as well, is to define, well, what is essential of all the things we teach in the subject. What do we feel are some of the most important topics? They're not all on here. What we list on the front report card are those that we actually have sort of universal assessments for. And then we have a report by quarter of just a couple line summary. Okay, what is the topic that we really study in the 3rd quarter and 5th grade? But we list all the quarters, so the parents will have a chance to get a sense of the progression during the year. Just to review a few of the characteristics and features of the new report card, you'll notice on the left-hand side, and this varies a little with the 6th grade and the 8th grade report card, but we'll start with the 2nd grade. On the left-hand side, you'll see academic performance that tells parents whether their child is reading at below or above grade level. And then there are academic performance level for proficiency. The state requires a rubric approach, which is, in this case, and the state has defined a 4-point scale from doesn't meet to exceeds standards. And those numbers will be filled in the appropriate blocks to the right-hand side of the card. And we also talk about habits of work, which you'll find on the back side of your first sheet, and that talks just about what it says. How do students go about the work they do? Not what did they get on the multiplication assessment, but how do they work day to day? And teachers from all subjects fill those in because sometimes there are differences that the faculty feel it would be helpful for parents to get more information than we've had. So one of the biggest changes in this whole structure is that you'll get the same information that we used to have under the traditional credit-based system, but now more information. Specifically, what areas are getting assessed that are being used as data points for mastery or proficiency. I know these are a lot of big words, but it's just, think of them as test forings. It's not an attempt to catalog everything a child knows. I don't think there may be any useful purpose for having books full of that. We also cannot certify what a child learns and forgets. We have no way of measuring that, and that is an inherent limitation of any reporting system. We are in the process of building an electronic database. The information from these items will also be translated to those records and will populate a permanent record. The state requires multiple measures, multiple opportunities, and several types of ways of demonstrating proficiency. Students and parents, even under the new law, have the right to say, my child perhaps doesn't show you what she knows about writing as well as she could, and the assessment you come up with doesn't capture it, but we can show you in a different way. In future years, those are topics that administrators and teachers will be grappling with, because we will be developing a system for how do we assess an assessment? How do we determine if a parent or student proposed method is valid? And remember, what's the change in the law? Now to get a diploma, a student earns credit, right, by demonstrating that they've met whatever teachers require in courses until they get enough credits. The new system says districts now must certify. So this is the system for us to say, okay, in an imperfect ability to show what students have learned, at least we're trying to create a much more detailed record of what students have been exposed to, what they have done for results on those, and what they have received by way of extra help. If you look at the center of the second grade report card on the top, you'll see receiving services, and that's Title I, RTI, speech and language, special ed, and it's divided by quarters. This is an attempt just to show another piece to parents who may not be familiar with the education bureaucracy. What does your child receive for additional services, if any, beyond the regular classroom? It also creates a permanent record, official record from the school of what those services are in one place. Then you'll notice in English and math, the standard issues and specific criteria. Those may change over time. I did mention that last year we were trying to get the assessments down. What do you do with a student that doesn't demonstrate proficiency on the first assessment? Well, now the law anticipates that schools will work with children as much as they can to get them to proficiency. So this year we're going to be working on round 2 of assessments. They may or may not look like the first round. And I would expect in several cases they might be a little different. Largely for the sake of the kid that may not do terribly well in one methodology. I'd point out in the bottom right-hand corner, they may not all be there, a photograph of a student. We're going to start putting photographs on each of these to try to personalize the record a bit and to show children and parents we don't think of students as units. We think of them as people. And we're trying to report a child's progress. It's not a huge deal, but I think it's an attempt to get at the affective side, to demonstrate how do we feel about students. You'll also notice on the bottom left, attendance. We're adding statements, and that is probably being tinkered with a bit right now, that absences affect learning. If you're not in the classroom, you don't have as much opportunity to learn as if you were there. And we feel it's our own duty to remind parents, if students aren't here, we can't teach as well. Internet and methodologies notwithstanding. On the backside, you'll notice that there are less, at second grade, fewer assessments by subject area because we concentrate in the primary grades on reading, writing, arithmetic, and getting along with each other. And then if you look at the 8th grade report card, you notice that shifts more over toward academically oriented circles. So, as I said, this work will transfer to a permanent electronic record as well. So, I would ask, because the law requires that boards review parts of this, if the board feels comfortable in voting acceptance of this methodology, that would be appreciated, and if you have questions, we'd be happy to answer.
And this is a living document, right? And if we see issues, then the administration will just go ahead and work together again and change it and make it more appropriate.
That is our intent. And we expect that some assessments will be better than others. Some will give us very reliable, repeatable results. Some may show students have issues with them that weren't anticipated or detected in the piloting process. So yes, very much wrong.
Yeah, this is very nice. I mean, I like the way it's laid out right now, and it gives a lot of information to a parent or guardian. And I make a motion that we accept it in its current form.
I have a question.
Yeah, I have a question. Hold on. Okay, so Ron moved the motion to accept it in its current form. Neil seconded it. Now discussion. Sean.
Could you just explain, like, the special education, say you mentioned someone in special education, right now the law says there's an exception to being proficient.
Okay, there have been changes in Maine's response to that. To give you a bit of history for context, the standards movement was part of a federal requirement for Title I, which is supplemental instruction, mainly in math and language arts. It's called NCLB, No Child Left Behind. You may have heard of that. But that federal statute required states to create structures to show what students were learning and their progress, and to tie them to standards. NCLB was replaced by the Every Student Succeeds Act, which does the same thing of redoing Title I services, but it removed the mandates on state structures and testing. Didn't take them all away, but it did substantively in this area. Maine found itself in the position of enacting state law to meet the requirements of the federal law, that then changed and dropped the requirements that Maine's law was intended to support. But it still is Maine law. And in our process, we have attempted to structure this, Sean, in a way that should the legislature change that, we want to keep the maximum amount of useful information, whether there's a standards law or not, that tells parents how their kids are doing. Now, as far as the special ed rules themselves, there were various interpretations of that. And the real question revolved on the axis of, does a special education student have to meet the same standard as all students, or meet the standard as modified by the individual education plan, the IEP, for special education. And IDEA, I know it's a lot of initials, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, that's a special ed law, lays out what schools must do for students. And elements of the federal interpretation of the old NCLB actually clashed with IDEA. So the initial state interpretation was, it doesn't matter if students have disability, they've got to meet the same standards in the same way as all students. Which means many students would never graduate because they can't do it, they need IEPs. The state has modified the Department of Education for the state has modified its interpretation of legislative intent by saying that students must meet the standards with accommodations. Well, accommodation doesn't remove the requirement altogether, but it lets you make some difference. There's also currently a pilot discussion, not definitive action that I'm aware of, that will bring it more clearly into following the IEP. And I believe in that approach myself. IEPs by law are supposed to be very specific to what a child can do, and not just set lower, easier standards, but to say if you have a child who has a language processing issue, who has another learning disability, that will modify what you have to do and how you have to show it. So it's something you can do with the disability you have. The debate at the federal level was about whether that ought to be the philosophy of the nation, or if it should just be every kid has to meet the standard, if they don't, too bad. I'm very firmly over on that we ought to accommodate the students' real needs. Otherwise, morally, what justification would we offer a child and a family for having compulsory education? You've got to come to school whether you want to come to school or not, and we're going to run you through a system that we already know will not let you succeed. It would invite dropouts at the moment any student could. I think it's morally the wrong thing to do. That's a personal opinion. And I believe that when we get around to it, that the real sense of the legislature will turn out to be, we want to make sure that everybody tries as hard as they can, does what they can given what they have. I would point to obvious examples of how absurd the opposite interpretation could be. Let's take a blind student. How are they going to meet visual art appreciation standards? Let's take a profoundly deaf student. How will they meet music standards? And there are ways blind students can appreciate art. There are ways you can use sensations for deaf students can play football based on sounds, drums. But they are directed at what the student needs, not on an arbitrary standard that the state has set. So this report card did not influence what the special education requirements would be in any way. When you see special ed on here, it's more to bring more information together in one place, quarterly, the parents have it, so they know, okay, or they go back and roll the report card. Not all parents recall everything their students had, and for that matter, as we're looking at student records, I think it would be valuable and useful for the staff to be able to use report cards in the same way. Did that answer you?
Very good, yep, thank you.
Katie, did you have a? Yeah, I have two. One is the habits of work. Is that on the 4 points at the same scale as everything?
Well, habits of work is our attempt to meet the other part at the state level beyond academic knowledge. It's called guiding principles. 5 of those, clear and effective communicator, lifelong learner, effective problem solver, help. We have those divided up in curriculum plans among subjects and grades, so that our plan asks each subject area to take one of those the one they're assigned every 2 years. So being a good citizen, what department would naturally feel being a good citizen? All right, that's a social studies report. Effective problem solving, any department. To do that, one of them logically leans that way. I would argue science or math. Effective communicator. You got English written on, I think. And we've attempted to have our staff take things that we're currently doing in many cases and go, okay, this can be a way we record and measure and formalize stuff we already do. And part of our attempt has not been to create something brand new for all of us, but in some cases just to be clear and maybe reorganize how we list information.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was under like a guidance curriculum.
Well, there are various approaches to it, and there is no comprehensive guidance from the state on how that should be done, and the law is written saying local school districts need to make these decisions for themselves, and I feel very strongly our staff have worked very hard taking that very seriously, so we have really first-rate standards, first-rate approaches to standards.
And my other question was, is the high school transcript? Noticed that was.
That's something we haven't gotten laid out in final form yet. The law requires, the new law that Katie is referring to, requires it with a high school diploma, but now a transcript accompany it. There's no guidance on what those transcripts should look like. The students who are affected, most affected, I would call it first affected, are the current freshman class. When they get to be seniors, that will be the first class that will have to have that transcript. And the law was written in the anticipation that districts would approach this stuff incrementally and make changes as we work into it. We have taken a K-12 approach rather than a 9-12 approach. Because I would argue that if you're going to design a system for ensuring that kids learn whatever they learn, you start with the student. And you start with what the student experiences first, rather than as a senior, build the roof and work your way down, doesn't make much sense to me. And we're trying, as we've been going through this, and I think every principal would support this. Teachers have been doing a lot of work about what makes sense for students as they come into my language arts class from what they've already had. Or if they get into social studies, what experiences can I count on these kids having had? So some of this is, like these back pages that we were referring to, is a way to get us, I think, the best of both worlds with teacher creativity and individuality and consistency and continuity for the kids. It says in the second quarter in this subject area, we're going to cover these topics. And there's still a lot of detail yet to be worked out.
Right, that's what I was curious about with the high school. Would there be like an overlay transcript that a college could immediately flip and look directly at, or is it?
You know, it could be electronic.
Could be.
The state simply has not gotten there themselves, and I don't know if the district has tried to be definitive on transcripts at graduation because there's so many unanswered questions. If you lock into a system at this stage, you likely will have an obsolete system within a year or two.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion to accept this format? 11-0-0.
Thank you very much. Just on behalf of the teachers and people sitting in front of you who've been doing the real legwork on this, thank you very much for supporting them in their attempts to do that.
Are you?
That concludes my, no, it doesn't. We have news from schools.
Okay.
Don't want to slate the schools.
They're all sitting there.
They were hoping.
Mr. Wedge, I'm sure being our host for the evening, has much to tell us.
I sure do. Yes, thank you. So a few things I'd like to share. I'm excited because we're hoping to implement our running club and get it back up and running a couple of years ago. It's something that we had at Benton. So Mr. Dangler, our new phys ed teacher, is getting that started up. Flyers went home, so that's starting next Tuesday. So every Tuesday and Thursday up until November 17th, we're going to have an opportunity for students to come at 7:30. He's going to run them through. He's creating a course outside for them to run and before school gets started. So hopefully we'll have high participation for that. We also have LC Bates, came for the first time this year, and LC Bates works with our second graders for a period of 6 weeks, once a week, and they're studying the habitats of Maine. And part of this program is very hands-on, so it starts with some like whole group instruction, and then they bring artifacts and things for the students to touch and to manipulate and for hands-on learning. And that's just something we've been able to work through grants, and also our PTO also donates towards that to get that going, and so we're very thankful for that, and our second grade teachers and our students are very appreciative of that program. And also our principal's summer challenge, we finally, I think this is the most updated numbers, they keep trickling in last minute, but 183 students participated in the principal's challenge. So we have prizes for them. They're actually in boxes in the office right now, so we'll be getting those to the students. And so I'm just very proud of their hard work, and I'm thankful for the parents that really pushed them to go the extra mile this summer. That's all I have.
Thank you. And folks at Clinton have been thinking about people in Texas.
Our students and staff, who doesn't like to look at kids, so. We decided to have a hat day to support those folks in Texas. So mind you, we have about 250 students, and they raised $384 to send down to Texas. So we were really proud of that. That's a little blurb that Marsha Buck, one of our student council advisors, wrote up. And our PTO participated for the second year since our PTO is now up and running. It's always been a goal of ours, and now we do have a wonderful group of folks. In the float parade this year, they won second place. Last year they won first, and their description of that is that they couldn't win first 2 times in a row. So they have to give first to somebody else this year, because of course they thought their float was the best. But second place will do. But we want to really give a wonderful thanks and a shout out to them, because they're really working hard, and they've already had plans to do things like family game night, a family dance, a family movie night, an ice cream social, and some other fundraisers and things over the course of the year. So we really want to thank them for supporting our staff and our students in that way. So they're doing an awesome job. Thanks.
Thank you. Principal Lee has been concentrating at the beginning of the year on a safety issue. Take a minute to describe that.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to share with you a little something that one of my teachers has been sharing around with all of the kindergarten staff to help the little ones in simple language understand all about the lockdown so that they're not fearful. We've been doing a lot of practicing, and this language helps them understand in kindergarten terms what the lockdown is all about. This simple ebook we shared amongst all the primary teachers and across Clinton and Albion as well. And, you know, our lockdowns, they went very well. None of the students were afraid, and they did such a model job keeping quiet as we practiced and went through the schools. And so there were really no tears or fears involved in that because of the way we presented. And I know that probably for parents, it's probably a scary thought, you know, sending their little ones off to school, you know, and practicing fire drills, lockdowns, and evacuations. But we have a lot of great resources and wonderful staff to be able to present those tricky subjects.
Well, you did an excellent job. My daughter's in kindergarten, I never said anything about it. So.
Very good.
She was not afraid.
The last thing I had was a note from Kathy Oxley, who was a librarian, and she asked to have this note passed on to you, the board. It said, with gratitude, I thank you for reinstating the position of the Ed Tech 2 within the Benton Elementary Library. Our new member has a wealth of library experience and is making positive contributions to the program, as well as having a positive impact on both students and staff. And that the tech takes care of certification most of the time. I'm not circulating. Condition. And if you look over in that corner, a lot of lessons on using libraries and getting into books, knowing which side up to hold it and how to get to the main point and all that. Our librarian actually delivers an information curriculum. So on her behalf. Thank you, Mr. Wedge. I got a seconded the motion.
100%, yes.
Right.
Thank you.
And homecoming is?
Starts Monday morning. We have our first homecoming dress of the day, and we have one every day. We have our competitions. I believe there's now 5. The big one now for us, because it helps a lot in the community. We do a food drive as part of our competition, and we have the kids bring in a lot of food, which is tremendous. We have our annual parade, 5 o'clock, and then we have a number of activities throughout the week. Different teams playing at home that week, and big game is Friday night. And if anybody not busy Saturday night, I would like to take the night off to do some fishing. So if you want to come to the dance,
Who are we playing?
I knew you were going to ask that.
Maybe I can ask somebody else.
You should have board members again.
I'll add to it, actually. So Spirit Week, the class of '87, and I think it's Charles York, is organizing a big homecoming. They're trying to get more alumni back home. Biggie will be there.
I'll be playing there.
So they got a lot of activities planned. They want to have like a tailgating down by Meridian's down in town. And on Saturday, they got a bunch of activities planned. It's not just for the class of '87, he's invited all alumni. So
I'll turn the music up loud because I know that class of '87 they can't hear as well.
they're getting older.
So I'll make sure the music's plenty loud.
So they plan to add annually to your Spirit Week and Homecoming weekend. Maybe we get some of them to come up and chaperone for you.
So who are we playing?
Okay.
Downtown Farming.
Okay, thank you. Next item up is other business, the conflict of interest statements. There's no motion necessary. Board member Jenny Boyden, Health Reach Community Health Centers. Neil Caverly Farms. Katrina Dumont, Personal Tees Hairstyles. Katie Fletcher, Let's Get Ready. Sean Knox, Mestech, Formtech Inc. Did I say that right? Kara Klugemeyer is Colby College. Caroline Toto Lawrence is. Kara's not. No, Caroline is on her own now. She started her own business, and it's What's the name of your business? Caring Hands. Caring Hands.
All states already got that.
Timothy Martin, Cornerstone Insurance, and Knockerball Maine LLC. And are we adding Benton Family Home Care?
That's Knockerball Maine.
Okay, it's all part of it. Okay. Shelley Rodnicki, Shelley's Used Cars, Sherry Tompkins, Maine Department of Transportation. Am I missing anyone? Okay. And yeah, some of us are retired.
As a student, and I thank you all for
okay, so now we're going to move into our instructional improvement plan results with our principals. We're going to break up into groups. Yep.
Lawrence Hall of Fame Committee will have its annual banquet Sunday, October 1st, 2 p.m. at T&B Event Center in Waterloo. Tickets, they get all myself, with Terry, Bill McManus, David Packard, anybody. That's a pretty big committee. Love to have you there. We've got 11 inductees this year.
When is it?
Sunday, October 1st at 2 p.m. Thank you.
Where was that again?
At T&B Event Center in Waterloo.
Before we break up into our groups, did anybody have anything else under other business?
Yeah, I would like to propose before our next board meeting and facilities meeting, I would like to set up a tour of the house that's for sale beside the superintendent's office. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I think if we could walk through it.
We're all closed.
No, not that house. He's talking about the other one.
Colonel Williams' house. I mean, Colonel Fleming.
See if it.
To talk to the real estate agent.
See if it fits into the system.
Okay.
Would you like the next meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 5
Before facilities.
It's gonna be special ed office.
Well, it's always something that needs to be considered to look at.
That'll be the board.
Yeah, the board's going to look at it.
No, the board's gonna look at it, so we see if we move in there.
Oh, okay.
And then we put a sauna.
Don't get a rumor out there in the public, thank you very much. Okay, so, I'm gonna ask that we, divvy up into, our
Let's
different
take a little break first.
with our principals, and yes, we will take a 5-minute break before we do that, and we will, so what are we talking, 8, 10 minutes per section?
We're gonna review last year's code,
So we'll keep it 8 to 10 minutes to each group, so I would ask that everybody,